Have you ever watched a movie and thought that it sucked? I sure have. Despite how hard people might try, not every movie can be good. However, like all art, movies are subjective. One man's trash might be another man's masterpiece. There's a lot of debate to be had about whether or not art can actually be called good or bad. It's less of a quantifiable, verifiable thing and more of a know it when you see it kind of thing. Even though we may disagree on what a good or bad movie might be, your feelings, my feelings, everyone's feelings are all equally valid and important. This is a safe space, is what I would say if I believed in all that crap. But no, sometimes people actually can be wrong about movies. But instead of talking about movies I don't like, I want to talk about ones that are widely hated by the general public, but I actually really enjoy. Have you ever watched a movie that you were certain was absolute trash, only to find out some random freak actually loved it? Hi, I'm that freak. At least sometimes I am. Over the years, I've discovered I have some pretty unpopular opinions on movies widely considered to be bad, and I thought it would be fun to talk about some of them right here. I figured this video might get a few people riled up enough to just turn it off immediately, so why not start big with probably the hottest take I have on this list, which is that Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is hardly a bad movie. In fact, it's actually pretty good. Now you have to come to this very special film knowing that they probably should have laid Indy to rest with The Last Crusade. But if you had to bring him back, I don't know. Aliens isn't really that bad of an idea. The whole B-movie alien throwback vibe is really fun. You have double crosses, evil Russian spies, political turmoil on college campuses. The film hardly looks out of place next to our current cultural moment. You even have a manic Shia LaBeouf doing crazy things. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stupid in this movie, namely the infamous monkey swinging on vine scene with previously mentioned manic Shia LaBeouf, but there's also a whole lot of great stuff here too. The first hour of this film is really quite good and stands up tall next to the other Indy films.
But what about the fridge scene?
What about it? It's pretty cool. What, is it too unrealistic for you? Are we forgetting that time Henry Jones Jr. himself survived a plane crash by landing an inflatable raft in wild Indian Rapids? What about that time he proved God's existence? Or what about that other time he proved God's existence? I'm not denying the fridge scene is silly, but all of the Indiana Jones movies are silly. It's part of their charm. And regardless, it's all worth it just to get that shot of Indy standing next to the mushroom cloud. So good. There's so much Indy goodness to love here. I think a lot of times when they do big reboots of big movies, the personality, the actual characters that make the franchise special is lost. This is not the case with Crystal Skull. This moment right here is 100% classic Indiana Jones.
Damn, I thought that was closer.
And I love it. They really nailed it. Crystal Skull is interesting for many reasons, mostly for how it shaped film discussion and internet culture to come. A lot of y'all youngins weren't there for this movie. I myself was pretty young, but I remember when this film released and it was like a bomb had went off. It's like a nuclear bomb went off in every nerd's basement, and the only way to stop the radiation from spreading was for them to make a video review panning this film and saying it ruined their childhood. Again, like I said, they should have left Indy to rot in a museum somewhere. But if you're gonna bring him back, if you have to, do it like this. No reservations, wild ideas. Give Indy a reason to be back. Aliens actually formed ancient civilizations and had unlimited knowledge and power, and they look a little goofy like old CG. Sure, do it. Crystal Skull would never rank above the first 3 Indiana Jones films, don't get me wrong, but I have no idea how anyone rates this less than the most recent one. Ugh. This seems like a good time to bring up the second film on this list. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Yeah, we're going there. Look, I've already said a lot about this movie on my channel, but this really is one of the most fascinating film projects ever. Just like with Crystal Skull, you have a legendary director returning to an immensely popular franchise, probably a little bit too late, but nevertheless, the anticipation was palpable, and I think George Lucas, much like Steven Spielberg, delivered. I wasn't quite there for the release of The Phantom Menace, but I've heard the world was very excited. A brand new Star Wars film set before all that Luke Skywalker stuff. And it's the start of a new trilogy? Man, this George Lucas guy has so many great ideas. Hopefully the new films have good dialogue and well-written characters. When it comes to story and characters and the plot, The Phantom Menace most definitely suffers. But I'd be lying if I said this wasn't one of the most original, striking, visual masterpieces of all time. And yeah, I said masterpiece. Simply nobody did it like George Lucas, and no one is currently even in the same realm as him, aside from maybe Big Jim Cameron over here, when it comes to world building. The world Lucas creates, with all of its weird costumes, robotic pets, vaguely racist alien creatures, and brooding drama, is astounding on a technical and emotional level. I connect deeply to this film just by looking at it. And I don't even think this is that bad narratively. Compared to the original 3 Star Wars films, it's a weird departure, sure, but it's clear Lucas had very clear ideas for his set of prequels, and he delivered, at least in terms of their form. Quick thoughts I wrote down about this one after a rewatch. Jar Jar isn't really that annoying. I don't love him, but he's not that bad of a character. Little Anakin is actually fairly good. Pod racing is cool, but not cool enough to dedicate like a quarter of this film's runtime to it. And that ending sequence with Darth Maul is amazing. Top tier Star Wars. Having this movie on this list might feel out of place for those who weren't around for the initial wave of backlash to the prequels. These 3 films stand at an interesting point in time right now, with older generations still claiming they are an abomination, and newer ones thinking they are perfect. I choose to take the bravest stance here, that of a centrist, where I think both sides are wrong. The prequels aren't misunderstood masterpieces, nor are they garbage. No one is going to convince me Revenge of the Sith is a satisfying payoff to a trilogy of films that is supposed to set up the world's most famous bad guy. But no one is also going to convince me that there's nothing to enjoy in these ill-advised, bloated, wonderfully weird and fascinating films. Roger. It's always dicey when you're discussing the Star Wars films, but hardly anyone out there is braver than M. Night Shyamalan defenders, and I'm proud to be part of this army. Not to be the friend that's too woke here, but wait, you know what? I am gonna be the friend that's too woke. A lot of people are kind of racist when it comes to M. Night. Purposefully mispronouncing his name was gross and racist like 20 years ago. Now it's something worse, unfunny. The way people treat M. Night Shyamalan today is really disappointing because he's a really great filmmaker. There's just this real nastiness that I find a lot of people have towards his films. Like, they're all dumb and they're all simple, and he really doesn't know how to make movies. It's really bizarre that there's assumption among the general public that M. Night is a one-trick pony and that he doesn't know how to write dialogue or characters. None of this is true, of course, but it's an easy way to sound smart without actually engaging with the art. Let's talk about one of the best, most underrated gems from 2024, Trap. I've already mentioned this film multiple times on my channel before, but man, I love it. I love this movie. A lot of my love comes from just how good Josh Hartnett is. He was great in Oppenheimer, but he's truly explosive in Trap. He's able to ride the line between awkward yet comforting, out-of-touch father and absolutely paranoid, OCD-inflicted slasher villain so well. Much like the characters in the film, you never quite know Cooper's next move. Another reason I love this film is its visuals. Tapping iconic cinematographer Sambo Muktipram, the same guy who shot Challengers, Call Me By Your Name, and Queer, was obviously going to lead to a great-looking movie, but wow. Trap is honestly one of the more visually striking films to come out in recent memory. There's many things to appreciate when it comes to Trap, but its greatest feature is its tone. Shyamalan finds a balance between goofy escape antics and dark domestic turmoil, happily handing audiences a mystery, thriller, whodunit, jigsaw puzzle with a few extra pieces thrown in for good measure. Is Trap a commentary on the sour underbelly of the familial unit? A critique of capitalism and social media? A deeply personal allegory for the director's own struggles of balancing being a director and a father? The answer to all of these questions is most likely yes. But it really doesn't matter as long as it's all fun, and boy oh boy does Josh Hartnett sell Trap like nobody else. Regardless of plot contrivances, some stilted dialogue, and an ending sequence that maybe goes on a little bit too long, Shyamalan and Hartnett both know there's very few things more compelling than watching a bad guy try to do the right thing. Now let's move on to a far more divisive, dare I say hated film, Old. I didn't watch this until recently, and I'll admit, I assumed it would be garbage. This is why you can never trust what the internet says. except of course everything I say. This movie is so cool. A lot of the conversation surrounding M. Night as a filmmaker is that he relies on twists and high concept plots as a crutch, and he isn't actually capable of making good, compelling movies on their own.
It's M. Night Shyamalan, the Indian filmmaker from Philly.
Oh my god, this dude's a big deal, Frank. He's like a true-to-life Slumdog Millionaire.
He always
You know
puts
what I
some
mean?
like awesome twist at the end of his movies to trick the audience.
Oh yeah, like in The Sixth Sense, you find out that the dude in that hairpiece the whole time, that's Bruce Willis. That's Bruce Willis. The whole movie.
That's not the twist.
That's not the twist.
To this I say, why do we want a director to cater their style toward an audience anyway? Why would we not want an artist to make the art that they want to make? I'm not saying you need to think something like The Visit or Signs is Oscar caliber work, but to brush off M. Night completely and his films as gimmicks is a total disservice to him and yourself. Old is weird, it's goofy, silly, corny, but also it's really cool and surprisingly emotional. M. Night has been playing in the horror sandbox for decades. It only makes sense he would eventually focus on the scariest thing of all: aging. A beach that makes you old is a wicked, unbelievable concept for a film, and when you hear it, your first reaction is probably to do an eye roll. But when you give this one a chance, a real chance, you'll find a viscerally disturbing, shockingly resonant piece on life itself and what it means to become inadequate. There's a moment in here also that legitimately had my jaw on the floor. It's freaky. M. Night's films are all over the place, tonally, formally, visually.
May not carry no chrome, may not be allowed a cell phone at dinner, but I'm young and can do 18 push-ups and I speak the truth.
But they all are unified by their desire to explore our struggle to find meaning and a place in this big, scary world. Whether you're a secret psychopath stuck inside a Hannah Montana concert, or a child forced to watch their parents wither away, M. Night has something that everyone should be able to find enjoyment out of. You just kind of have to believe in him. Moving on to something a little bit different, but still very much controversial within the horror genre, we have Alien Covenant. Perhaps one of the most misunderstood movies ever to be released. I've already talked at length about Prometheus, a film I've come to adore over the years, but Covenant is really special too. Now, there are parts of Covenant that kinda suck, but not in the way that I'm talking about in this video. Prometheus made a lot of money, but it split fans and critics right down the middle. Some loved it, and some hated it. Division is scary to big movie studios, and thus Ridley Scott's original plan for his new Alien David trilogy had to be changed and shifted around. Don't quote me on any of this, but this is kind of just my understanding of the situation. So Alien Covenant was kind of forced to both follow up this weird offshoot of the Alien franchise, but also get audiences back on board with the franchise itself. How did they do this? Well, they just kind of made the original Alien film again. I see people call this one bad and sucky a lot online, but I really enjoy it. Alien Covenant looks great, and it adds some cool things to the alien mythology that I find really interesting. Everything with David is so weird, and his interactions with himself is really fascinating to watch. The film looks fantastic, and it has some awesome sound design too. And when it comes to violence, boy oh boy, Alien Covenant is also one of the most mean-spirited and ugly films to ever be created at this scale. The Alien franchise is known for having gnarly deaths and disgusting action set pieces, but Covenant makes the rest of the films in this series look like playtime. Covenant is mean and gross and wicked. People die in this movie in ways nobody has ever put on film before. The xenomorphs are awesome in this too. It pretty much is the original Alien movie all over again, with sprinklings of like Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection in there for good measure. But darn it if it isn't a great, fun time. With the success of Alien Romulus, a film I really do not like, I really doubt we'll get the actual conclusion to Ridley Scott's David trilogy, which is honestly heartbreaking. The legendary UK filmmaker wasn't trying to recapture the magic of his original sci-fi masterpiece with Prometheus. He was trying to add on to that world in a big and bold ways. Alien Covenant felt like a half step backward, but it's still a great film and adds on to this franchise in some really awesome ways. It's so fun to watch this movie. I don't know, this is like, it's kind of messy and it's all over the place and it's got kind of stupid stuff, but it's also super singular and visionary in a way that you don't get a lot anymore with big budget blockbusters like this. There's just something about Alien Covenant that's really special, and I'll stand by that. And there you have it. 5 poorly rated films that I actually enjoy quite a lot. There's a lot more movies I could have talked about in this video, but I wanted to keep it brief. I wanted to keep it simple. And that way, if this video does become popular, I could just keep milking it. Look, we're all never going to agree on everything. This is true for everything, not just movies. And this is honestly why I love talking about them with other people. Coming out of a theater high on life, only to discover your friend, partner, ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, whatever, hated it. It's such a weird and it's a difficult situation. But we're all human. Nobody's perfect. We're not all going to think everything's good. We're not all going to think everything's bad. These differences in opinion is what makes life fun and interesting. It's just awesome to talk about movies like this. But also, if you don't like any of these movies on this list, what's wrong with you? Come on. What's not to like about this or this? Or this. I've said it multiple times in this video. Everyone can like everything. Everyone is allowed to have their own opinion, blah, 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 blah. But I think you should at least like more movies than you dislike movies. I think you should come into this with an open mind. I think you should just have more positive things to say about movies than negative things. I think you should have a list of movies you really like, and I think this list should be bigger than the movies you don't like. I think it's easy to talk about things that we don't like. I think it's easy to trash movies as being awful. I think it's easy to talk about the worst movies that came out in a given year. But a wise man once said a good day watching a bad movie is much better than a good day not watching a movie. Just watch them, have fun, enjoy it. Try to see what the director, what the writer, what the cinematographer, what the music people, what the actors, what they're trying to do, and I think you'll come to appreciate movies that you might have written off at first. All right, rant over. Bye.